Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to, from this book, you're welcome to another edition of our book reviews. A couple of videos ago, I mentioned that I was going to be, doing some book reviews. And the last one we did was on derby shoes, and that was where we did a review of the book All About Shoes and Techniques by Hans van der Elzen. Very well received video. That's quite encouraging, and that inspires us to continue along these lines. Today, just like we promised in that video, we are going to how to make cowboy boots, and these are the two gentlemen who incorporated the design elements taught in this book, model pattern, cotton, and design, in their own craft, and their continuous reference to what you find in this book have been the reason why I went back to the book to read it for myself and indeed study it. Another shout out that I would like to give is my friend Peace Ando, who for the second time in a row, at least that I know of, has been shortlisted in the World Shoemaking Championships. Peace Ando operates under the brand name Doobie Shoes, and he is from Ghana. For the second time in a row, he's flying the Africa flag proudly in the World Shoemaking Championships. So Peace Ando, congratulations. We are all proud of you. Very, very, very proud of you. Very humble guy, very unassuming guy, but an excellently and exquisitely and primally talented shoemaker. Peace Ando, congrats. You are a big inspiration to all of us. Keep flying the flag, and we hope to be like you when we grow up. Now let's get to the book review, and a key important things that you must pay attention to if you are going to make boots, especially the sort that doesn't have any lacings or zippers by which their overall width can be expanded so that the legs can pass through. If you are making something like a cowboy boot or jot paws that are used for horse riding, and you are not incorporating zippers or lacings, then your pass line is going to be extremely important. And while we are speaking of that, this is Eugene Peake's representation or his deduction of the concepts.
But if all of these lines look a bit too complex for you, not to worry. I'm going to, just break that down in real time. So we're going to just close the book right now, and I'll demonstrate to you what I learned from these books in real time. So let's go onto my own camera, onto my own drawing board, and do that right away. Right. So first of all, let's establish a few points of taxonomy. Let's name things, because if we call things by their names, it's easy to identify them. The first thing is the heel height. The heel height is how far the last leaf off of the ground when you place the toe on something not more higher than a pen. So that's the heel height. We're also going to talk about the top line. You would hear me talk about the front line, and then also the shaft or the calf grips. Then we will talk about something very important, which is the pass line. There's a number of other lines that we'll talk about, the ankle lines, but first of all, let's start identifying some of these points and lines on a right angle. So the first mark is the heel height. So we said the heel height is how far the last leaves off of the ground. In the case of this slash, you see that I have represented it on this mean form here as HH, and it is 6.5 cm. So we trace out the mean form on a right angle, ensuring that the heel is on the heel height point, and then the ball is on the horizontal line of the right angle. Next, we'll connect the vamp point to the ball, and that is our vamp line. Divide that vamp line into two, and then connect the middle of the vamp line to the counterpoint, and that is our quarter line. Then we'll draw a line from the heel to the ball, and then from the instep we'll draw a line that is parallel to that line that runs from the heel to the ball, drawing it from the instep. So then we'll take a measurement of the long heel. The long heel is the distance between the heel and the instep. In this case, you see that it is 18 cm. Half that distance, we'll mark it on this new line that is parallel to the line that runs from the heel to the ball. Then we'll draw a right angle to the baseline to pass through that mark that we made. This line is the line on which we are going to mark out the height of our boot, measuring from the feather edge. So in this case, I want this boot to be 21 cm. And if we draw a right angle from that mark that I have made, which is 21 cm from the feather edge, this is our top line, right? Now, the front line or the shaft line of this boot, we will mark about half a centimeter behind the instep. Then we'll draw a right angle from the baseline to pass through that point. And then if we curve the front of the center line to this new line that we have, this becomes the curve of our shaft. Now, if we divide that curve into two and take the middle, then drawing a line parallel to the baseline to pass through the middle of that curve, this line that runs like this is the first of our ankle lines. Now, if we measure 4 cm from where that ankle line intersects this perpendicular line that we have here, and draw another horizontal line to pass through that line, this is the second of our ankle line. Now, these two lines are relevant for calculating our pass line. The first thing that we will do is, so on this first ankle line, we will subtract 2 cm. Actually, it's supposed to be 1.9 cm, but I rounded it up to 2. Subtract 2 cm from the long heel. So our long heel was 18 cm. 18 minus 2 gives us 16. So we'll mark 16 on this line. And then the pass line will be the long heel minus 0.5 cm. The long heel minus half a centimeter. Our long heel, as you know, was 18 cm, and that means the long heel minus half a centimeter will be 17.5 cm. We mark that on the second of the ankle lines, and that becomes the width of our pass line. So our pass line will run from the middle of the curve around the instep to the second ankle line. Next thing we're going to do is the top line, but to generate the top line, we would have to calculate the calf girth. The calf girth, like the picture you saw, is the circumference around the top of the boot where the height of the boot is going to be. So you take the circumference. In the case of this boot, it came to about 32 cm. So you divide that into 2, and that is going to be the width that you are going to represent at the top of your boot. So 32 divided by 2 really came to about 16 cm. So at the top of this boot right here, I actually added about 1 extra cm to have some allowance. So I ultimately got 17 cm at the top of the boot. Now, you will notice that the last isn't sitting pretty inside the pattern that you made. Not to worry, that all of that space you find at the back there is so that the leg can fit into this boot without the need for having to install a zipper or any kind of lacing harness. So that way, once you notice that we calculated that pass line using keeping it as close as possible as we can to the long heel, which is going to be the distance that you would have when you're trying to slot your feet into the boot. Now let's go ahead and construct the vamp of this boot. The vamp of this boot should never cross the long heel line, and you see that, so you draw it just to be tangential to the long heel line, and then ultimately following a line that runs from the vamp point to the counterpoint, and going from the counterpoint area and curving towards the back of the boot. So this is ultimately what we have as the design of our boot when we clean out all of the other lines that we used in designing. So this front part is the vamp of the boot, that back part is the counter, that is the back panel, and this is the front panel of our boot. For cowboy boots, you typically will not leave it stop just flat like that. It's usually common to have curves around that top like so. So I'm just going to use a French curve to add those curves up there and right there. So ladies and gentlemen, the design of the cowboy boot is already done. So these are the different parts of the boot. I'm going to duplicate all of these parts and then leave the springing of the vamp to our next video. That is also one area, one aspect that many people usually have problems with. So I'm going to leave the procedure for springing it for the next video. So in the next video, we are going to spring and crimp the vamp of this cowboy boot. But for now, let us basically just duplicate the parts of this boot. So this is what we started with before we did any sort of duplication. So we've duplicated the front panel. So that's the front panel right there. You see that I have added the stitching allowances at the front. That's the back panel. And that is it right here duplicated. You see that I have also added the stitching allowances. And that is the counter duplicated. You see that I've also added the lasting allowance to the counter. All that is remaining is this vamp, which, like I already mentioned, we will duplicate and spring in the next video, and then we would also delve into crimping it. And if we have more time, we may build a test shoe out of this. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the next video. Until then, God bless you.